What is up, everyone? We're going to be going live here shortly.
What is up, everyone? We're going to be going live here shortly.
What is up, everyone? We're going to be going live here shortly.
What is up, everyone? We're going to be going live here shortly.
What is up, everyone? Oh, got some, sorry about that. Had some feedback there. But yeah, we're going to be going live here shortly. So bear with us just a minute. By the way, everyone, let me know what games you all are playing right now, or what games you've been playing this past week. Leave it in the live chat. We can talk about that here after we go live. Just curious to see what everyone's playing right now. I am playing Fortnite myself. Spider-Man Miles Morales. I went back to that to complete it, and played some Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 beta this past weekend. So we'll talk about that tonight as well. But let me know what you all are playing in the live chat. All right, Mariano's playing FIFA 23. Mariano, how is FIFA 23, by the way? My middle child has been bugging me to pick it up. He plays soccer, and so he wants to play FIFA 23. But, yeah, I don't know if I want to pick it up, but I hope you're enjoying it. But how is it? And again, everyone, we're going to be going live here in a couple minutes. Good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday. It is BRAP, or Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, as we are known out in the gaming streets. What's up, everyone? I hope everyone's doing well tonight. Appreciate each and every one of you stopping by to hang out with us this evening. Do me a quick favor. I'm going to drop the link here in the live chat. Please send it out to everyone on your favorite social media platform. But again, thank you, everyone. See a couple of people talking about games that they're playing. We see some Cyberpunk in there. What else? FIFA 23, The Last of Us remake. Oh, and Just Wait says 9 sacks on Wentz Commanders. Wow.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's another conversation. We're not going to get to that because I don't want Slow-Mo to say I told you so.
That's a bad game. That's a bad game to play. Yeah, and I did tell you so.
Yeah.
So we oh man, the arguments we had.
I don't want to talk
a full
about
day of arguing.
Let's not talk about
Discord
that.
about this.
Let's not.
Not
Yeah.
Discord.
Yeah. Yeah. But a big shout out to Brian Baker, aka Delirium Blades, says Fortnite and Hurricanes. Yes, I was playing Fortnite, no build mode, actually build mode and no build mode. We think we finished 5th in build mode, and then we took the W in no build mode. It was me, Snaps, and I forget who the other teammate was, and then Delirium Blades. And yeah, we went in there Slow-Mo. Oh my God. Our entire team had 22 kills.
Nice.
We wrecked shop. Let me tell you, Blades, Mel's, and I forget the other, who was it? You have to remind me who it is, Blades. The other person, we all had DMRs, and we were just eating people. Oh, V, thank you. Evie, yes, thank you, Blades. We're eating people alive, dude. It was Slow-Mo.
Evie, you had a Pokemon with you? Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
We had a Pokemon, yes. No, I mean it was nasty. Like 22 kills as a team. We would run into teams. We were just mowing people down. It wasn't even fair.
Well, I'm glad someone is having success in Fortnite.
Yes.
Last night I came in second place 3 times in a row. I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to bed.
Yeah, I mean, remember, like we've talked about how season was it season 3 now? Season 4? What season is this, man?
It's chapter 3, season 4.
Chat, that's right. Yes, and it's like we talked about this, like how that W has been invading us. Like I think the first time that I played this season was with you. We finished second place.
Yeah,
it's been brutal.
Where I finished, and I've got a few wins, a couple solo, a few in duos, and I think one in full squads or trios. But just after the last one I had, which was like 2 or 3 days ago, it's just been second place over and over and over again.
Yeah, I did pick up the alien skid too, by the way, Slow-Mo. They got me for $20. Epic.
I'm trying to hold out, man.
Oh, man.
I've bought far too many
the Xenomorph
skins.
skin, by the way.
I'm not trying to be called a whale anymore, so I'm not.
Well, you are a whale.
You
never
not
lose
a whale.
that title, Slow-Mo. You never lose that title, sir.
I'm not a whale. I'm not a whale, man. I don't buy everything that shows up. So I'm holding out. I don't have the alien skin. At least
all right, man. Fair enough. So, but yeah, no, it was fun, man. It was a great W, and but like I said, Blades is in Florida, and I think the eye of the hurricane's supposed to hit close to where he lives. So, by the way, everyone in Florida,
man.
please be safe. Oh, I see X Abbott. X Abbott says on the path of the hurricane. X Abbott, please be safe, be careful, and again, all the best to the folks in Florida who are going to be impacted by this storm. So. By the way, totally. On a side note, and more pop culture related news, Coolio died. Did you hear about this?
Yes, I did. Unfortunately, yeah.
That's crazy. 59 years old, apparent cardiac arrest. Wow.
That this afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So,
rest in peace, Coolio.
What's that?
I said, rest in peace, Coolio.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, it's crazy because that's part of my that's part of me growing up, like his music when I was a teenager. Fantastic Voyage comes to mind, and then obviously what he's probably most famous for,
Gangsta's Paradise.
Paradise, yeah, with Michelle Pfeiffer. So yes, rest in peace. But So look, we have a great show for everyone tonight. Got a lot to talk about, actually. We got some E3 related news. Got some PC news. I know people love when we discuss PC related stuff, but we're going to talk PC related stuff because AMD has just dropped its new Ryzen CPU, so we'll talk about that. And apparently, Slow-Mo, they're hot. They run hot. We'll talk about that. But
high five. But
yeah, hot. And then it's Satya Nadella doubling down on Xbox and video games. Saying it's part of Microsoft's DNA. So and then it's Phil Spencer a couple weeks ago also saying that Microsoft's not done buying studios, and so some of the conversation I've been seeing is Microsoft targeting a studio in Japan as they look to bolster, Japanese games, which they're doing. I mean, bolster those games in Game Pass. So we'll talk about that and some other things as well. But let me introduce the panel here real quick. We got, since we were having a conversation, let me introduce Slow-Mo Backslap, Slowmonius, and I don't know what other name the games you go by. Slow-Mo the Truth Slayer. And I don't know. I'm just making stuff up at this point.
Yeah, I like that. The True Slayer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a good day, man. It's been very, very interesting. I make a drive-by tweet on Twitter this morning, and it's just like the rest of my day is just my notifications are just going off. I had to mute the thing. I'm just tired of people responding and showing that they can't read.
Apparently, you try to demonize Sony.
I'm a demonizer. I should change my name in the Discord to that. The Demonizer. Actually, I'm going to do that too. It was funny. I was laughing for like most of the day as I was dealing with work and various other things. But it's been a good day, man. I hope you had a good one too.
Yeah, I know I have, man. Absolutely. It's been a little busy at work. Interesting. My company is watching, as we talked about on the show, Mr. Lee Hampton or Hamp. We've talked about how companies make decisions or try to navigate things or put themselves in positions they feel is going to benefit them in the long run as we may be getting into a recession potentially. And that's kind of what's happening in my company, where they're kind of scaling back on hiring right now. So not completely scaling back, but scaling back and, just watching expenses, things like that. But anyways, we do have Hamp. Hamp, how are you this evening?
I'm all right, man. We should hopefully we'll get a chance to discuss that quote from Slow-Mo Backslap. I'll try and keep from just derailing us. There's a lot to be angry about this week.
Yeah, we're going to talk about.
You talk about it now, then.
We can talk. Okay, let me get to super chat then. We can talk about that quote real quick. We have Dark CA with a $10 or the $10 pound. Thank you for that, sir. I really appreciate the support as always. So, all right, let's get into Slow-Mo's tweet here. Slow-Mo, your tweet this morning was related to why is PlayStation basically locking down locking down exclusives from Japanese developers if Xbox gamers or Xbox, the Xbox gamers aren't really playing those games per se. Is that I know I'm paraphrasing.
I mean, well, to clarify the reason why I sent the tweet out. So like I guess the start of this whole conversation was there was a Giant Bomb podcast that they were talking about Xbox was inquiring on Japanese developers, publishers, whatever. And then there had been some conversation yesterday on Twitter, and that I had missed mostly because I was busy doing other things. But I saw tweets after the fact where people were discussing, well, why are they acquiring developers and publishers that are of Japanese descent if their player base doesn't play those games?
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking to myself, right? Well, why would you do marketing deals and have timed exclusive content to keep these games off of Xbox for at least a period of time if nobody is buying them on Xbox anyway? That would seem like a waste of money, a waste of resources, financing, funds, whatever. You're spending money to keep games away from Game Pass. You're spending money to keep games timed exclusive, mostly with Square Enix, off of the Xbox platform, that seems like if they're not going to buy the games anyway, that seems like a waste. So that's what I tweeted out. And it just like all kinds of people had all kinds of conversation and thoughts about it. But apparently so does Hamp. So Hamp, what are your thoughts, sir?
So really, it was a question of trying to, I just talked about you ducking the show tonight just to get you on the show, not because I had a hardline disagreement with your take. So what's, I guess it's more of a.
I respect the what's the word I'm looking for?
The bait.
The bait. I mean,
Hamp was out here chumming the waters.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So I'm trying to, because as you went through that, there was a point where you were talking. Where I was like, oh, he actually agrees with me, and I don't have a hard line perspective on one side, but a couple of weeks ago, the question was, and I'm trying to see if it's the same question you're asking, was Sony's spending that money to keep those games off Xbox, and they wouldn't do that unless they thought it was a credible threat that them going to Xbox would result in players playing them, right? And therefore, those Japanese developers later considering, oh well, maybe we don't go exclusive this time. So you're saying. So your question is actually poking holes in the giant bomb.
Yes,
argument.
I'm poking holes in the whole. It was kind of two-sided. It was poking holes in both of the fanboy camp arguments. One, that Xbox gamers wouldn't buy Japanese games, and then it's also poking holes in the argument that that Sony isn't out here trying to actually. Like they're not out here doing these time exclusive deals because of some of the other various excuses people come up with. No, they're doing it specifically because they know that if they didn't do it, there's the opportunity. I brought this up. I did a live stream earlier. I did a long time with Slow-Mo earlier and explained all of this.
Slow-Mo, do you actually eat lunch while you're doing those streams?
No, I never eat.
I imagine you eating a peanut butter jelly. I don't know, man.
Lunchtime is Slow-Mo. The only people eating lunch are the people listening and watching.
Exactly.
By the end of it, I'm starving. I'm surprised people can't hear my stomach growling by the end because I'm just I haven't had lunch yet. And so then I end up working and then trying to eat while I'm working. So that's my actual lunch. Anyway, I did a live stream trying to explain this. So basically, what Sony's trying to do is interrupt any chances of growth and cultivating a following on a particular platform. And I brought up many examples, especially in my past, of times where I when I first played a RPG before, Final Fantasy 2 over here, but Final Fantasy 4 in Japan on the Super Nintendo. I brought up the first time when I became a fan of BioWare, and I just every time BioWare would drop a game, I'm on it day one, because when I played KOTOR, I was like, oh, this is it. This is one of the best RPGs I've ever played. When they came out with Jade Empire, it wasn't even a question. I'm getting it. And so it's when you have a particular kind of genre of games or a particular IP that's always showing up on one platform, and you're following, whether regionally or not, they always know where your games are, so they have that platform to get your games. But there's another platform that hasn't had the opportunity to actually enjoy any of that. When those games show up on there, of course, one, it was the fact that last generation PlayStation had a 2-to-1 advantage in install base. So, of course, the games weren't going to sell at the same clip. But even then, when you have games that aren't too familiar with the people on this platform aren't too familiar with those kind of games, they're not buying them anyway. But you have the opportunity through time, and especially quality products, to cultivate a following. Like the way From Software with Demon Souls, it sold less than 1 million with the very first one, but then over time they keep coming out with games that are of high quality. People enjoy them more and more. Now we got Elden Ring coming out this year, outsold everything they've ever done in just a matter of weeks. So it's about cultivating a following. And what Sony doesn't want on Xbox is that some of these games that they feel are synonymous with their platform to be cultivated over on their rivals platform. And so they'll hey, we'll get it timed exclusive over here because we want you that mean like there's incentives to this. We want you to feel like it's best to play it here and not over there. And so like that's the whole like really like the gist of what I was trying to say. But
Okay.
it's hard to say that over Twitter, you know.
Right.
Did a live stream.
So what you're saying is, hey, all you guys running around saying that Sony shouldn't be bothering to spend the money to keep Japanese games off of the Xbox because Xbox gamers don't play those games and won't play those games. You're saying that's incorrect. There's no way in the world that C-level officers at Sony Corporation would decide to expend those funds if they did not think there was a credible threat to there being uptake on the Xbox platform of those Japanese games and making the strategic decision that that was money well spent, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Like I said, I don't come down hard line on one way, but I tend to agree that, you know, if there wasn't something to be gained by spending the money, then I don't think Sony would be spending the money. Right?
Yeah,
That just kind of doesn't make sense to me.
That is literally the foundation of my entire point. If there wasn't a reason to spend the money, they wouldn't do it. And the reason is like to the whole. It really upsets this whole narrative that Xbox gamers won't buy Japanese games. It's actually kind of disrespectful. If I was strictly an Xbox gamer to say, oh, what, like, so I'm just some meathead dude, bro. What's all the other terms that people say for
the shooter box?
Chad. I'm just a Chad out here that just plays shooters all day long and racers and sports games, and I can't enjoy an RPG. Like that doesn't even make sense when Western RPGs really are more synonymous with Xbox and PC. So why like the entire narrative that like, oh, you don't play these games when for the most part, a lot, especially like a lot of the bigger ones, don't even show up on the platform. And when they do show up there later, like Octopath Traveler, like it doesn't really, it's not really looking at the full picture, you know.
Well, I think part of what's go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say, you know, I think part of where this narrative stems from is that, you know, if you look at like sales numbers, right, for like Final Fantasy games that have made their way to the Xbox, and then Capcom. If you look at Capcom's financials when they show the breakdown of games sold on Xbox versus PlayStation, I think that's where some of that conversation probably comes from of you know, the Xbox fan base or install base not necessarily playing not just JRPGs but games just that are developed by Japanese developers that maybe don't have a Western flavor to it. So I think that's where some of that comes from. I'm interested to see though what the player, what the engagement's going to be like for like something like Persona 5, because I feel like Persona 5 is an RPG, maybe not the same scale in popularity as Final Fantasy, but it was a very successful title. So you know, I'll be interested to see how that works out. But go ahead, Hamp.
I was going to say real quick,
go ahead.
Crisis Core is not going to sell great on the Xbox. Just get that out of there. I'm trying to get people to understand what I mean when I say that, like, you're trying to cultivate a following in an ecosystem. It's compared to what is going to sell on PlayStation, it's not going to be close. So people, when Crisis Core comes out in December, and then there's going to be the typical thing, a week after it comes out, we're going to get like some report of like the physical sales in like one borough in England somewhere, and it's going to be like, people are going to be like, ah, see, I told you. And then it's going to, in the MPD in January, it's going to show that like it probably didn't chart at all on Xbox, but it charted a little bit on PlayStation, and people are going to be like, see, I told you. But it's like, yeah, like we know that, we knew it ahead of time. Don't you think that Sony, Xbox, and Square Enix know this too? Don't you? I mean, like this is their freaking job. You think they didn't know that it wasn't going to sell as much on Xbox as it would on PlayStation? Just like, hello, like that's not how any of that stuff works. But okay, my bad. I'm off my soapbox. Go ahead, Ham.
No, I think part of the problem in this is some, and we get this very frequently on Twitter. I think part of it is some incorrect interpretations of data correlations, right, and some incorrect assumptions of data provenance. And I mean,
What?
J, J, I mean JRPGs, and this is a theory that's a bit out on the edge because, like I said, I don't have a firm, hard feeling about this, one way or the other. JRPGs, right, wrong, or indifferent, I think people like to argue that they're not a genre. So call them whatever you want, but they're a thing, right? And they're a bunch of data points that have high correlation to each other, and people see them, right, in a singular bucket. I don't know that they look at them as singular titles, right? I'm interested in Persona because of Persona 5. I'm interested in this JRPG because that JRPG. I think people see them as a type of content that is available on the platform. And what may be going on is that when that type of content is available in very small numbers, a lot of people will look over in that corner of the room and say, I can't be bothered, right? And so if you don't have a certain bucket of that content kind of available en masse, then the tendency for something like the Game Pass effect, where people are more likely to kind of toe dip and find something interesting and all of a sudden kind of on board to it, I think is less likely. Partially because I think of the stigma that there is around JRPGs, and the uptake, the consumption of those games, for a gamer is different. They have a different narrative style. They have a different kind of engagement motif. And not everyone's up for that. And particularly when you only encounter them, right, in very small numbers. Like, BRAP, we often talk about, what was the older JRPG that you mentioned? Was it, I can't remember. Was it the
Dragon Quest?
Yeah, yeah. So when things like that show up kind of onesie twosie, I don't know that they're likely to gain as much traction, and people look at that and say, oh well, Xbox gamers don't play JRPGs. I mean, I've said that before, right? But I think that is maybe evidence, right, that the Sony effort to not allow them to show up on Xbox en masse might actually be working and effective.
Right.
Yeah, interesting point. Yeah, go ahead, Slimo.
It's a long-term strategy. Like Hampus right, it's a long-term strategy, and it is working. And you kind of see the point of part before Phil's most recent trip to Japan. He used to actually does this annually. It seems he makes a trip to Japan and he goes sits down with developers and publishers, but prior to this time, maybe he's seeding, trying to get an acquisition. They've been talking big on that, so maybe that's what the point of his trip, his most recent trip was. But previously, the points of his trips were to try to get to build relationships with these developers and get some of those games over onto the platform, because he understands that it's you're starting from step one. It's starting blocks. You need to get people over. And of course, in Japan, those games aren't going to chart at all because you got zero market share in Japan. But as we've seen with Atlas, who have realized that just looking at your domestic shore sales and thinking about that is kind of pointless when overseas your games are just as popular, or because of the bigger population sell more, that now Atlas is looking at having their games in multiple places. They're all in on PC now. They put all their as many Persona games as they could into Game Pass. They're open, they're a little bit freer, and it's those kind of agreements and trying to cultivate a following for Persona games on Xbox wouldn't have happened if it wasn't Phil Spencer or Matt Booty or whoever the hell, probably just Phil Spencer, going over the seas and speaking to Sega and Atlas and trying to make those inroads happen. So it's really people look at the sales, they're going to be see, that was worthless. There's no point to it. Why would you want your game to sell poorly on another platform? But poorly compared to what? Would you have really to compare it to? If you could say it's so poorly on the platform, if there was a prior game on that platform that sold better, and then you drop another game and it sells worse, that's selling poorly because instead of growing, you regressed. Comparing it to another platform that's twice as big and has been enjoying your games for over a decade makes no sense. So, yeah.
So I thought what you said. I thought there was a good chance that we were in agreement, but I wanted to hedge my bets and get myself prepared for a fight just in case I was reading it wrong.
Well, I'm always here for a fight, Hamp. I love to fight. I've been fighting all my life. Let me stop.
Speaking of which, where's Forte?
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I was like, speaking of fights,
I usually fight Forte, but he's not around. But Mr. Forte, let me tell you about Forte, right? This is going to get him to show up. So Forte, like we were on DPS last week, right?
Yes.
And we had the homie Agent Deli, ex Ubisoft developer on, and Deli's with us, and we're talking about, I think it was just kind of randomly came up. We were talking about how Babylon's Fall is like, I think they're shutting down servers like early next year, and the game is selling for like pennies or something at GameStop or something. And then there was something about, like, I think Forte said that GameStop was going to start telling them to not sell it at all or don't accept it or something. I can't remember. But like we were just kind of laughing about how the game at some point would be like a collector's item because there'll be like none left, on the shelves and stuff. And so Deli was like, yo, Forte, can you send me 2? I want a couple. I spot you $10. I'm pretty sure they ain't much worth more than that. Let me get 2 of them. And he was like, "Yeah, I got you. I'll tell you how this man Forte has not responded to Deli at all. Sad. Deli really wants 2 copies. Got nothing.
Because
he comes to me.
Forte's hoarding them all because he wants to sell them later on for his collector's items.
Exactly right. He comes to me. And I say, let me talk to him. He responds to me and was like, all right, yeah, I'll look into it. I don't know. And I'm just like, it's typical Forte, man. Typical Forte. He hasn't shown up yet to defend himself. So, but I'm pretty sure he will at some point.
He might be, yeah. He might hop in later. Yeah, it's interesting. I'll say this. Like, I thought Dragon Quest XI was a big get for Game Pass. I could see why Microsoft, because I saw the argument, oh, well, why would Microsoft go after Japanese publishers or developers? And I know there was that conversation on Giant Bomb about them targeting Japanese studios, which I believe they are. But people were saying, oh, well, why would they do that? I think they would do it because they want to round out that portfolio. I think you said the same thing, Hamp.
Yes.
Make that portfolio. And think about this. And it's Game Pass is beyond the box too. Like, I think people forget about that. Like, what if you, and I think this was you, Hamp, who said, if you could maybe saturate the Game Pass platform with enough Japanese titles where you start noticing them, because that's kind of like my experience on PlayStation. When I see different Japanese titles, there's definitely more saturation of that content from those developers on the PlayStation platform. If you go to the store, well, I start thinking, this looks interesting. Okay, I've never played this before. I've never heard of this game. And so if you think outside of just the traditional console holder, that could be appealing to somebody who has a device where they could stream some of this content on either their cell phone or they go out and buy one of those LG 3, whatever they're called. I forget what it's called. We talked about it last week. Or
the Logitech G.
I'm sorry, yeah, the Logitech. I just saw I said LG, Logitech G3. And or the new Razer, which I know you're going to get day one, slow-mo.
Only if they gift it to me to review on my channel, which I will probably destroy it. But yeah, sure,
yeah. But I could see like that
Shout
being
out to Razer.
But that being a play too, appealing to an audience outside the U.S. I think sometimes we're too U.S.-centric focused. We don't think about the markets outside of the U.S. and how Microsoft getting more of those publishers or developers into those games into Game Pass could be appealing to folks overseas who play those games and maybe don't want to go out and buy an Xbox, but now have the option to play many of those titles via Game Pass on a different device, PC, whatever the case is. And Microsoft still gets that subscription dollar. I mean, that's still a play for them. It's beyond just the box and selling those consoles, I think.
Yeah, what I said earlier this week was people Well, I leaned on the quote from Matrix Revolutions. You people can only see 5 minutes in front of your faces. That's people were saying, why would they do this? Why would they do this? Right, their player base, and I'm like, it's not. Look, the portfolio is getting to a point where it's almost full. Right, you got 23 studios. You may go to 30 plus studios or whatever here if the ABK, if the AVTI merger closes. There's no point in stacking more and more developers who all do the same shtick right into the portfolio. It's time to start looking for where your gaps are. BRAP, you and I talked about this. You and I have familiarity with working teaming agreements, right? And it's a huge thing in teaming agreements, particularly if you're going to get them approved by a C-level officer, right? Because I've gone through this many times. Is you're going to get hashed on whether or not the person you're teaming with, the person you're trying to bring into your fold, right, covers a gap that your own company doesn't cover.
I'm going through that right now, Hamp.
Yeah, because if they cover the same thing, you're going to go, why would I pay? Because in a partnership and a teaming, you're going to not only pay for the work and the product, you're going to pay the additional fee that they add on top of that to cover their own profit. Right, and so that's that build or buy decision where you go, why would I buy another developer that does the same thing that we already do? And so they're obviously probably looking for developers who do something different. Now you may still see some overlap, right? And it may be because they're going after developers that are in a certain region. Some of this is about some desire to kind of cover the globe. One of the things that I learned about earlier in the summer while I was freelancing for GamesBeat was just how there are kind of some of these regional kind of hotbeds of development, right? And companies will kind of focus on cultivating relationships there and cultivating base building there, so that as that region blows up, right, they have a foothold there, right, into development shops in the area. And so you may see some of that. People can fly is going through some unfortunate things right now with Take-Two, like backing out of their deal that they had with them. And the rumor 2 or 3 years ago was that Microsoft was over in Poland, kind of stumping for a potential developer to acquire. So you may still see things like that, right? Even though you could argue that People Can Fly, right now it's kind of making games that other studios in the Microsoft camp could. But looking at Game Pass, at least on PC, as we continue this conversation, at least on mine, right, there is no subset of games that have been cultivated, right, that say JRPG, right, which indicates to me, I don't know that there are any there in sufficient mass to warrant them kind of being called out, right, and put kind of right in my windshield, right. You have all types of stuff here, roguelites, and amazingly enough, there's enough zombie games for them to have split out a category of games called Zombie Uprising. Right, but there's not a category that's been put here in my windshield for JRPGs. There's role playing and there's strategy, but JRPGs aren't called out. So until again, potential that until Microsoft gets enough of those, and with particular regards to Game Pass, stuffs enough of those in that subscription service, that they don't have the center of mass that they need to kind of make that push into that content area to onboard other gamers that are looking for that, and to encourage and cultivate relationships with other Japanese developers, that it's a viable option, right, to put those games on Xbox as well.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Real quick, go ahead, Slomo.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, I think it makes sense that they would want, kind of just agreeing with him, that it makes sense that they want to go get developers or publishers that specialize in different kinds of games. It diversifies their portfolio. It doesn't make sense for them, especially like say if they went and acquired like Larian Studios, that would make no sense. Larian Studios specializes in Western RPGs. They've got like 4 studios that do that right now. Like, why would you go just double down on more content that you already have? It's not really a worthwhile acquisition, despite the fact that Larian Studios is probably one of the better Western RPG makers right now in 2022. Like they're if you would rank them, they'll probably be like top 3 easy. But at this point in time, when you have Bethesda, when you have Obsidian, you have In Exile, like there's just no purpose in making that kind of acquisition. And so like if you're going to keep acquiring studios, acquire things that you don't have. Acquire studios so that you can provide the kind of content that has been so far eluded you. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. So I agree 100%. I mean, that's kind of, it was curious. I think some people were missing that point by saying, oh, well, why would they do that? Well, they would. It would make sense for them to. I would have grabbed the super chat by the one and only Gaming Forte. He says, with the $2 super chat, thank you, Forte. He says, see how it is. Oh, man, Slow-mo.
Yeah.
You hurt this man's feelings.
Yeah. He's okay. He's fine. He's fine. It was all a ploy to get him to say something, so he did. See, it worked. and I see some talk in the chat about can Microsoft even acquire a Japanese studio? I mean, they already own one. They own Tango Gameworks, and if you're thinking, oh, but they only got that through Bethesda. Well, Bethesda, the headquarters of Bethesda is like a hop, skip, and a jump up the road from where I live. So they're an American company too, and they own Tango Gameworks. So look, you can own a Japanese company. It's not impossible. And if it was impossible, they'd be pretty silly trying to acquire a Japanese developer or publisher if they couldn't do it. You would think Microsoft would know that ahead of time and not bother, right? Yeah. Also,
and they don't have to acquire. They can always, fund projects kind of in similar fashion to what Sony does. They did this on the 360 generation with Mistwalker, funding 2 games from them. So, I mean, they dropped the bag at
they can make them a second party. Yeah, they could make them a second party, like not own them, but have like an exclusive contract with them, kind of similar to what they did with Remedy for a while in the late 360 era to early Xbox One era, where they had like a 3-game deal. I think it was supposed to be a 3-game deal. I think they ended up not doing the last game or something like that. But they had some kind of a exclusive deal with Remedy, which ended up with being Alan Wake and what's the name of the game? Quantum Break. So yeah, I mean they could do something like that. That's definitely possible. Like Atlas makes an exclusive game for the Nintendo Switch, and also makes an exclusive game for was exclusive, not anymore, for PlayStation. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah. Real quick, if anyone wants to take a bathroom break, we're going to talk about Ryzen's new CPUs. And actually, I did watch a little bit of Gamer Nexus, and actually, I think it was mostly Gamer Nexus. Maybe what's his name? What's his name? J2 Cents.
J2 Cents. Yeah.
Yeah. Watched a little bit of his stuff, but I think this is something you wanted to discuss as well, Hamp. So the new now I forget the new Ryzen. What is it? The 7? What is it? 70? Shit.
So the ones that were sent out to reviewers to test were the 7600X and the 7950. Well, yeah, the 7600X and the 7950X.
That's what it was. Okay, yeah. So basically, and this is again, I didn't get a chance to watch everything with the videos, but apparently they run hot. Like anywhere from 92 degrees Celsius to 95 degrees Celsius. But my understanding, this is done by design. They're intended to run that hot. And I did see people kind of like concerned about how hot the CPUs run. But I remember when I picked out, and thank you, by the way, Slow-mo and Ham, for guiding me towards the Intel 12700K that I have in my current gaming rig. But I remember, I don't know if it was you, Hamp, or Slow-mo, you were like, that chip runs hot. You should get liquid cooling. And that's what I did. But yeah,
it was
so
probably ham because I kind of don't. I'm not a fan of liquid cooling. I'm more of a air cooler guy. So yeah, it was probably Hamp that recommended it, but it's a good recommendation considering the fact that liquid cooling is better. So yeah.
So let's
yeah.
So let's tell a little bedtime story. It may not have been me because at that point in time, I have personally
neither one of us did it.
Right? Yeah, one of us did
Eric.
Because at that time I had never actually built a liquid cooled system myself before. I have been a staunch person who's always chosen air cooling, and there's a reason why. So I grew up at the early start of my career around very, 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 very many electronics enclosures, and I saw the evolution of those electronics enclosures over time, from being air cooled to liquid cooled and then back. And one of the things that I always had a problem with, I was like, it just doesn't make sense to me to deliberately send water into an electronics enclosure, right? That's just something about that, like, just doesn't seem right. So I was always, I've always preferred, and same thing with PCs. You know, when I started building them, it's just always made more sense to me, right? Like if something goes wrong, I don't want water spraying into my electronics enclosure. But
yeah, that's been my idea. Plus, right. I just using air cooling is just simpler. I'm inherently lazy, and I don't want to set it up.
Yeah, I have actually. So I made that switch this year. I felt the Ryzen. So cooler manufacturers have kind of done a weird flip over this last generation. It used to be that when you went to select an air cooler, it was very specific about what CPUs it was compatible with and that it was suitable for use with. I have seen less and less of that kind of commitment in the technical specs on air coolers. I've seen like kind of, you know, I've seen references, and in fact, there used to also be a lot more specifics around specifically like TDP. I've just seen a lot of loosening of like what the air cooler manufacturers will commit to. It really forcing me to become super reliant on PC Parts Picker, which I had always previously used as I made all my part selections and did all of my research on my own. And then my kind of last swing through, my last pass, right, would be to, you know, run it through PC Parts Picker. But mainly because of that cooling situation now, I've just been driven to go to PC Parts Picker and just start building my PC there. So I made the switch to building liquid cooled units, and I'll tell you, Slow-Mo, I mean, from my personal experience, and I wanted to build two liquid cooled systems this year, which I did to kind of prove that I wasn't just fooling myself from the first one. It's incredibly easier to build a liquid cooled system. It is. I always pitch to like really high anxiety when you're going through that step of putting the thermal paste on the CPU and then taking the big honking heatsink and fan assembly and just cranking down on it. Like I'm just always certain that I'm pressing too hard, or you know, or the cooler's going to kind of slide off and I'm going to damage the. It's just much less stress inducing to do that with an air cooler. It tends not to slide around as much on the mounting bracketry. It seems like it's less complex and confusing when, you know, when they do have an adapter for, you know, socket umpty scrunch. It just, I haven't done them twice now. Like I'm never going back. It's just incredibly easier, but that's just been my experience.
That's cool. Yeah. I just like it just when I built my PC, I was just like, am I gonna go? At the time, I think I have a i7 97K 9700K. In my PC, and it's like, I mean, like base clock is like, I think 3.6 gigahertz. So I'm just like, I don't need anything but like your typical cool. I didn't even get the best of the best cooler. I got like a Cooler Master 212. Like I didn't even get like a great cooler. I got like a decent budget cooler that would deal with like your default temps with your CPU. When I decided to overclock it though, and I overclocked it to 4.7 gigahertz, it was like, yeah, I need a better cooler than this. But just like the process of doing that was always so simple. Just remove the cooler, clean off the CPU, put on new paste, put on a new cooler, and get the clamps down, and I'm good, and I'm set to go, and everything's good. And it's just like not having to worry about like if anything might leak in things like that. Regardless of whether it's old hat or anything, like that's not what happens anymore. It's just like I say I don't have to worry about it. It's like one less thing I need to worry about when it comes to maintenance with my PC and everything. But no, my next one likely will be liquid cool because I know what I'm kind of looking for in my next build and my next CPU, and I'm not trying to have some massive, humongous what's the name of the best air cooler. I haven't thought about them in so long, but like they have the ugliest coolers though, because it's like they always use like brown and beige, but like
Noctua.
Yes, Noctua. Yes, the Noctua. I think it's the DH15. I think the thing is like it dwarfs your CPU and your RAM card slots. It's just freaking ridiculous. It's just like I'm not trying to have something that big and ugly blocking
oh,
up
man.
everything.
Hey, those things are ugly. I'm just looking at them.
Yeah.
And what are they? Those things are ginormous.
It's the best air cooler that's out there, but it still is slightly not as good as using a really, really excellent AIO. So it's just like I'm just gonna go liquid cooling.
Yeah, they tend to be. I think Noctua's claim to fame is they tend to be. I want to say lower RPM, higher CFM kind of fans, and they do a really excellent job with their bearings. And so I think their big thing is people like them because they're really silent.
Yeah,
doesn't sound like a jet turbine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure people in the chat are screaming about too much PC talk. So real quick to go through, because the only reason I wanted to bring up the Ryzen CPUs. So there's 4 CPUs that are out. It is not their full line. So normally, right, the full line of at least enthusiast processors would be 7600X, 7700X. There is no 7800X right now. You go straight to 7900X and then 7950X. And so it's a skosh less than, I guess, what I would technically call an enthusiast processor. There's no 7600, which there would normally be in the lineup. It starts at 7600X, and there's no 7800X. As you mentioned, they do tend to run, what we would kind of think of as hot. And the cautionary tale that I've thrown out is lots of times people look at absolute temperatures and go, oh, that's hot. But I think I'd pitch the perspective be hot is relative to the design of the chip, right? And so if the chip is designed to run at a certain temperature and is designed with thresholds and alerts and alarms on the motherboard, et cetera, that do things like pop warnings, or motherboards also have a higher end where they will actually shut down, right, if the CPU gets to a certain temperature. As long as it's within all those thresholds, then it's fine. Like, hot is a relative term. And like Slow-Mo and I were talking about, now, there may be some other considerations why there is a reason you don't want to run a hot CPU. Power draw is going to be a little hot. Is going to be likely be a little higher because you're going to need a larger Mongo cooling solution, right? Which is going to probably draw more power. The CPU is likely to draw more wattage. These CPUs, if you've been on Ryzen processors, tend to even for some of the enthusiast processors, right, top out at like 105 watts. The 7950X and 7900 will run at 170 and 230 watts, and 230 is definitely the highest that I can think of, except maybe the R9 parts may have previously gone up that high. So you should be okay. You have to think about things like just how much overall heat are you generating in the box if you're then going to pair that CPU with a very high-end NVIDIA GPU. And so that combinatorial effect of two really, really hot parts in a box may be something that you have to consider if you're building kind of smaller form factor boxes. So if you're building around a micro ATX case or smaller, that might be a consideration. I tend to always build in mid towers, and even though they will accommodate a micro ATX, it's the mid tower case size generally gives you better airflow. I think the last thing that I saw from the benchmarks that I thought was key for people to look at and consider and pick up on is that 7600X has a lot of performance in it for the lower end part. And so for people coming from a 3000 series CPU, which would be the point where I would recommend considering upgrading. I don't think if you're on a 5000 series CPU now, you have any need whatsoever to upgrade. But if you're coming from a 3000 series CPU, even coming in at the low end, which is a 299 part, which is one of the reasons why I've always wound up going AMD over Intel, even though with Alder Lake we're starting to see more competitive pricing. That's a pretty good part, right, for you to go with.
You said the Ryzen 76.
The 7600X.
And I think that's what that's $300.
$299. Yeah, and then the 7700X is $399. Now, if I'm on one of my boxes has a 3800X now, so I'd kind of be looking for that part to come into the lineup, right? There are reasons to wait. And then you also will sometimes see, like over time, you'll see some introduction of additional SKUs which may lower overall TDP. So there might be some reasons to hold off and not jump feet first right at the beginning of this generation. I went as soon as Alder Lake launched, which is not my norm. I typically kind of wait to see if there are kinks to be worked out. And even Intel processors have launched with like severe problems where a major correction had to be made. And I think at some points even specific SKUs being pulled out of the supply chain. So. But from what I see from benchmarks, synthetic benchmarks are good, right? Deli and I were talking about this the other day. The problem is with these, as they will be with the new GPUs, is real world benchmarks, may not move the needle that much in terms of gaming, right? Because games aren't necessarily coded and designed to take specific advantage of new architectures, new instruction sets, etc. They will show those advantages over time. So for a gaming perspective, I don't know that you need to upgrade right to any of these CPUs, but for content creation, for video editing, image editing, and things like this, if you're a person who both games and does a lot of content creation, I think these would be good parts to take a look at, when they launch, or even if you pump the brakes and wait a little while for a few months to see that all the bugs get worked out.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, Hamp. I'm looking at that 7950. That thing's a beast.
Yeah, I also could kind of concur where Hamp talks about if where to consider upgrading at, because if you got like a 5000 series Ryzen, you don't need to upgrade at this point. CPUs aren't like GPUs. You don't need to upgrade them as often, although you really don't need to upgrade GPUs as often either. But if people want to have peak performance, then yeah, go ahead. Like every 2 generations, make that jump. But you don't even need to do that with the CPU, honestly. Like you can have a little bit older CPU and still not really be maxing that CPU out. Like especially when a lot of these games aren't using all the cores that you have available.
Yeah, single core performance, single threading is still going to be the most important thing to you for most games.
Yeah,
exactly. So like, yeah, if you got an 8-core CPU, 8-thread CPU, you're fine. Like you don't really need to move up yet. But it's I say give it like another 2 or 3 years, you might need to make that jump.
Yeah, the Ryzen 7600X is the one that's $299 that Hamp talked about. It has 6 cores and 12 threads. Its base clock speed is at 4.7 gigahertz. Boost is 5.3.
Yeah, one thing that should definitely be mentioned, I'm pretty sure all the PC enthusiasts out there know this, but the other thing this will require you to upgrade, which is kind of abnormal for an AMD part. But this does use DDR5. I think those are the first motherboards. The first motherboards that they come out with will only support DDR5. I think that there has been talk that later they may enable it to work with DDR4 as well. But in most likelihood, you're going to need to go with a new CPU, a new motherboard, DDR5, and I think you're going to require PCIe 5.0 SSDs as well for NVMe. I know the X570 board I'm on now is only compatible with PCIe 4.0 NVMe SSDs, and I actually had to buy two because I thought I was going to scavenge and use my threes, but I actually had to bump and get new fours to go in that box that I just built on a 5950X. So a little more upfront investment than is the norm to make this shift. But again, this is a generation in parts that at the outset are not for the mid-range PC person, but definitely kind of pointed at the enthusiast end, or just somebody who's all in on needing to upgrade or just go with an entirely new box.
Yeah, I look at it like if I need to upgrade my CPU, I'm probably gonna need to upgrade my motherboard, and if I gotta do both of those, I'm just gonna build a whole new PC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the shock for Ryzen people who have been, I mean, if you've been on Ryzen from the beginning, which I have been, I was able to upgrade through 2 generations of Ryzen without moving motherboards. And actually I could have upgraded a third, but I didn't bother doing a 2000 series upgrade. So I did BIOS upgrades to all my first gen Ryzen boards, and they supported me through the 3000 series CPUs.
Oh,
so
yeah, because Ryzen, like only being on Intel, yeah,
you're lucky. That's the only thing you have to buy is another motherboard
right.
whenever you upgrade
exactly.
Intel.
So that's I know that like AMD has claimed that they would always kind of like you not fully supporting like super old CPUs or anything, or like super old motherboards, but like that they would kind of like have some consideration with that, and they have for a while. But I've always kind of figured AMD at some point would just it turned out like Intel, where it's like very next generation of CPUs, you need a whole new motherboard if you want to use this.
So this is a new socket. You're going from AM4 to AM5. But my hope is that once they get you on AM5, kind of just like last time, you'll be able to sit there for 2 or 3 generations before you have to upgrade again. Because AMD is less anti-consumer than Intel is.
Oh wow! Oh no, we're not going to do that. Greedy Intel.
Oh man,
because that's been, I've seen that kind of floating around a little bit too. But yeah, no, Hamp, thanks for kind of giving us a little more insight. You too, Slow-Mo, as well, in the new CPUs. Any other additional information that might be relative to those? Maybe interested in upgrading. Anything else?
No, that's it, man. I think we've sufficiently killed our console audience at this point.
Yes. Somebody in the chat said, "I'll stick with my PlayStation 5." You do that, good sir. You do that, good sir. Not everyone can eat lobster and caviar and drink Moët.
Hey, I know that's usually my shtick, but yeah, let's not. Yeah, that's a perfectly viable option. It's a good pick, right? To come in at that midpoint, right, and not pay that extra money for performance that you don't need, right? I mean, and quite honestly, point, if I was only using my PCs for gaming, I totally agree. It wouldn't necessarily make the most sense to go PC, but I use my PCs for lots of other stuff. So. Yeah,
no, I do too. Remember I was telling you, Hamp, that I had I was kind of in that funk with gaming. And then I went back to Miles Morales. You know what else got me back? My PC. I just fired up my PC and played Fortnite, and I said this to Slow-Mo, and I was playing it in all of its glory.
Every time, here we go.
Oh, high settings, and 144 FPS, and I'm like, oh, Slow-Mo, This game looks so good. What did I say, Slow-Mo? This game looks so good on PC.
The entire match. We'll be in a gunfight, fighting for our lives.
Yep.
Slow-Mo, this game looks so good. I was like, shut up.
Well,
I know.
He has time to do that in a battle royale because a battle royale is so casual.
Oh.
I mean, 22. You had
Oh.
20. You had 22 kills. What is that like 5 engagements?
Wow.
I mean, that's not that many really when you think about an engagement per minute metric. I mean, that's
Oh man.
it's kind of low end. Doesn't sound like you were very busy to me, quite honestly.
We were busy fighting. Yes, there are times.
They are lulls.
You can sit on top of a mountain and just look at the countryside and be like, oh, that is pretty, and that does look much better on my rig. On my rig, but
Oh man, and then I fired up Cyberpunk the other night too, and Cyberpunk, I mean, and by the way, I mean, what a comeback story for Cyberpunk in terms of engagement.
hey, what your GPU is a 3070, right?
Yes, it's a 3070, and Hamp reminded me that I don't have a 3070 Ti, but yes, it's a 3070.
That was not the intent of the comment. I was correcting you on the recommendation I had made to someone else. A 3070 is a completely respectable GPU.
That's I love my 3070. I had a 2070 before. I stuck with the 70s, and I went with the 3070, and I like it. It's that nice sweet spot for me. It's very nice. So, but I think you have a Slow-Mo. You have a 3070 Ti, right?
Yeah, 3070 Ti for now.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm
not gonna lie. I've been eyeing those 3080 prices.
Wait, the
I'm
3080
definitely
or the...
not going the 4000 series. I'm not doing.
I'm not
it.
going
I'm
4000.
But I'm going to let AMD do their presentation, and I'm gonna see what the market does, and then I'm gonna let those 4000 series come out, and then I'm gonna see because they're still selling the 3000 series. They've said that already because they're not doing, at least not right now, the 4070 and 4060. Those will probably come out next year. So as the price, which like on Best Buy, the 3090 Ti is down $900. It's $1,000. It's $1,000 off.
Hold on, what is this? The 3090?
A 3090 Ti, yes, is retail of it is I'm looking at it right now. $1999, right? $2,000. It's now $1,099 right now.
Oh my God! Don't tell me that.
Yeah, I physically walked into a Best Buy tonight on the way home, and there were 3080s in the cage, and they were $699. I want to say.
Oh, don't tell me that.
What? I would
Hamp-
have bought it.
Hamp
God.
and Slow-Mo. I need to talk to you guys after the show about. Oh my God!
It was a 30. Was it the 10? Hold on, was it the 10 gig 3080s? Because I don't want those.
Yeah, I didn't look that closely at them.
Okay, because like I'm not my whole thing is I want at least 12 gigs of VRAM, because like to really max out games, if you were trying to max out a game, ultra settings or very high, like the highest of graphical settings at 4K, native 4K, in at least 60 frames per second on PC, you're gonna need to have about 12 gigs of VRAM. Honestly, like 10 now, right? Probably about 10 right now, but you want to kind of have 12 just for a little bit of overhead. And
Slow-Mo, the 3080 Ti 12 gigs right now are $900 on Best Buy's website.
Yeah, I know. I've got it in my save list. Because I'm saying it when AMD makes their announcement, and when that 4090 comes out next month, and then the 4080 in November. So like around November is like mid-November is where I'm gonna make my decision. I'm either getting a 3080 Ti or anywhere between a 3080 Ti and a 3090 Ti is where I'm gonna get this. It's basically just gonna come down to what nice deal I'm getting, but. Yeah, and I'm getting it brand new. I'm not buying it used. I'm just, I don't think I would need to at this point because the market is not necessarily saturated with GPUs due to the change to crypto, but it's a good number of supply out there for people who want to make that jump and really, and it's not. I'm not out here. I know some people in the chat saying FOMO. It's not FOMO. I always wanted. I actually took out my Avid Media Live Gamer 4K capture card because it was dual channeling my my PCI slots and my motherboard, which means it took my main PCI slot for my GPU from 16 gig X16 down to X18. I'm sorry, X8, which means I could only do it at the max 8 gigs of VRAM. So that's why I've always been kind of using like the 3070s because they only have 8 gigs of VRAM. But at this point, I don't want that no more. I want to play my game to the maximum fidelity and performance. And even though I'm currently still doing that more than what these consoles do, but
That's not true.
It is.
Don't you know?
It's
that
absolutely true.
Don't you know that? Never mind.
Yeah, I know. You can bust.
Remember we used to get that in the chat all the time.
Right, that like because I could play this game at 60 FPS. I'm like, yeah, so I play it at 120. What are you talking about, right? So but no,
native 4K.
Yes, and Counter-Strike, yes, is the guy have overhead for shitty PC optimization. That's facts. I play Ubisoft games, so yeah, shitty optimization is the name of the game. Hey, look, it is what it is. Freaking latest update on the Division 2. Well, one, the game is broken on PC, but when it does play, I'm getting like 24 gigs of RAM. Why is this old ass game using 24 gigs of RAM? Like, whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I just want to have. I'm telling you, I'm not upgrading my GPU anymore. If I get a 3080 Ti or 3090 Ti, at least not for another 3 years.
Yeah.
So I just want the chat to acknowledge I said my piece about the whole PC thing and I was done. So I don't want to be the one who constantly gets blamed for skewing the podcast in the direction of PC. I covered the news and I put my pencil down and I've been done for quite some time. I just want to get a little credit every now and then here and there.
Yeah, we won't blame you this time, Hamp.
See, first 2180 says $400 to $500 for a PS5, and I say you get what you pay for.
Okay, all right. Speaking of
what?
Speaking of,
you asked what his other nickname was. I think his other nickname was the Undertaker. he's digging graves tonight.
Oh man, there he is.
And that's no shade to the place. It's a fine console.
It is a fine
it's
console.
It's a fine dynamic resolution, 60 frames per second. Low to medium settings console, and it has got great exclusives, and Sony is supporting it well. But you get what you pay for on the hardware.
Not like that, Slowy. He said it's a great low to medium setting. That's messy. All right. So speaking of games that, go ahead. Oh, I thought somebody said. Speaking of games that are, we talked about battle royale games not being very engaging and having moments of I don't know, where they're slow. There's one game that it's not very slow. Well, actually, it's maybe slower than previous versions. That's the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 beta that just dropped this weekend, and I did have the chance to play it. Slomo, I know you played it. Hamp, we actually played it together. Yeah. So what are your? I'll go to you, Slomo, first. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, one, I'll say COD's not my kind of first-person shooter. I'm a Halo guy, so I prefer the longer TTK. I prefer having the opportunity for reversals. I kind of, and maybe it's a preference thing, but I kind of feel like it's a higher skill level for that kind of first-person shooter. Plus, I am older, so I'm more inclined to play the Halo kind of games and Splitgate stuff like that. But all that said, I thought it was typical COD. I thought it played like COD, except for some minor changes here with perks. I know like the hardcore Call of Duty guys are upset, and but for me, I played maybe like I didn't play for long. I maybe played like 6 matches. Really only had one match where I felt like I didn't know what was going on. I just kept dying left and right. But like the rest of them, I was pretty much just was having fun killing people. I think but it's just not my kind of first person shooter, so I'm not interested in getting it when it comes out. That said, I think it's probably going to, with the changes that they've made. I think they, for the hardcore Call of Duty guys who were upset because they feel like it's casualized Call of Duty. You're probably right, but you know what's going to happen? They're probably going to sell a lot of copies of this one because I think they understand that the hardcore Call of Duty gamer, like a lot of the hardcore of a particular game's IP or community, are going to complain, and then buy your game. And they're going to do a lot of complaining, but they're still going to buy your game. And then they're going to be spending probably the most amount of money on your game than anyone else does with microtransactions and the like. But if you want to maximize sales, which is what they care about, you're going to cater to people who aren't the most skilled and they're the casual audience. And if that means that you're going to create like mini metas within the game that incentivizes camping or peeking around corners and not necessarily chicken with your head cut off, running and gunning, then that's what you're going to do to kind of help the lesser skilled players compete against the higher skilled ones. And that's their way of balancing it, whether people agree with it or not. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to end up becoming a Call of Duty that will end up selling a whole bunch of copies, like most of them do, but definitely will sell more than Vanguard did.
Yeah. So I'm gonna enter into argument for consideration. I don't know that those guys who are complaining are the hardcore. They call themselves that, but let me knock some dirt on that shoe, right? Look, you're not an apex predator.
Let me step on those Jordans.
You're not an apex predator if you don't adapt, right? The history of the planet is littered with so-called apex predators who didn't adapt and they went extinct, right? And I think that's what's happening to the Call of Duty crowd that insists that the game remain the same as it is since time began, who complain loudly and vociferously and whiningly about skill-based matchmaking. There can be bad skill-based matchmaking. There can be bad tuning of skill-based matchmaking. But the general design and gameplay philosophy that gamers of a certain rank should play with other gamers of a certain rank, in my mind, is right? Once look, we don't allow Pee Wee Football League kids, right, to play with high school football teams. And once you graduate from a certain level, you should move on to compete at a level that's commensurate with, how you play. And I get it.
I get the analogy, but there's also physical reasons why we don't let that happen.
I mean, but how is that different?
Well, because no one's going to get hurt playing COD at a higher skill. I get the analogy. What I'm saying is that there's Pee Wee versus older people. I mean, you're going to get like the kid is going to get destroyed and probably have a few limbs broken.
Right. But again, from a gameplay perspective, I don't see that as any different. One of the problems with COD and onboarding and staying on board with it, right, and many other games of this type, is that if gamers come in and they're trying to learn the game and they get seal clubbed by other people, there's a huge offboarding, right? People don't put up with that. People don't stick around when it's hard for them to learn because in terms of the amount of time that they have to expend, right? And you can learn a game faster when you can spend more uptime, right, engaging. The Battle Royale discussion we've been having, right? One of the problems with Battle Royales to me is that if you don't get that many engagements per minute, there's a learning curve problem, right, in that to me. Apex helps with that by implementing Arena because you get a lot more engagements per minute. Fortnite, their workaround was solos, right? That was helpful to me. But when COD was like it was back in the kind of Modern Warfare 2 area, where you would just get spawn killed right off the bat, I don't know that that's particularly encouraging for people to stay around. So I think the motif that requires people to constantly adjust and constantly adapt, and skill-based matchmaking, again at the conceptual level, is still to me a much more elegant game design and implementation than the way some other games approach it.
I think the reason why Enrique said that the analogy you used may not have worked is that like the difference was, say, let's say like a unskilled player in COD versus a skilled player in COD is that the unskilled player has the opportunity, at least within a short period of time, to get better, and try to get better and compete against the more skilled player that's as you said, C clubbing the lobbies.
Yes. Yeah.
But you know, like it's going to take some years for, say, little league guys to play with high school kids. You know,
Well, that's my point.
like,
There's physical limitations involved with it.
there's no chance. Like you could be like, I know what needs to be done. I know all the plays. I know what routes to run. I know where to throw the ball, and you're gonna get clotheslined as soon as you hike the ball because like your offensive line is just. They're at like hip level to the the guys they're going against.
I get that it's not the Matrix, that if you die in COD, you don't die in real life, right? But my point is, I think effectively it's the same. If you don't have skill-based matchmaking, you create an environment where a person might be playing for their very first time, right? And they come into a match, and everyone else who's in the match. Let's talk about when in free for all, right, where it's just 8 people. Right? If the other 7 at least have a clue and range anywhere from people who at least have a clue to highly skilled player, that just creates an environment where there's not a lot of opportunity for you to really engage and not only not learn, but just not have any fun, right? And that's the point where people, right, don't stick around. So skill-based matchmaking not only has the point of leveling the playing field, but actually encourages a lot more uptake for a lot more players, which at the end of the day is the point, because monthly active users, MAU, right, is the way of the world these days.
And
I
those
think
games are going to live or die in that engagement too. So
yeah, the argument about skill-based matchmaking, I actually worked on a video about that because I want to really explore the topic of skill-based matchmaking in multiplayer games and really get like both sides of the argument, the people who are pro SBMM and people who are anti it. But I like my kind of like stance on it as of now is that it's necessary, but I think it should only be implemented when you have got it right, because like sometimes it can be harmful if it's too strict for a really small multiplayer community, or if it's too restrictive in allowing a player whose skills have increased to grow out of playing against lobbies with people that aren't on their skill level, or to the point of like you shouldn't have skill-based matchmaking in every single mode of your game, because in those cases like where are the modes where just friends can just play together? If you got a guy that's an esports player and he wants to play with his friends, and his friends aren't esports players, they're just regular dudes that's just be 8-hour job, I'm coming home, I want to play a game, I'm playing with my friend. Because like if you take Halo Infinite for example, as strict as the I think is it G Skill 2? I think is no actually that's the name of RAM. I'm sorry, something Skill 2 is what they call their SBM in Halo Infinite, but it's so strict that like and even so on casual and social. In the social lobbies, that it makes it difficult for people of various skill levels to play together and all have fun, because what's either going to happen is that somebody is going to get dog walked all across the lobby, and they're not having fun, but they notice when they play on their own they're playing against different players, and they're having fun. And so it's like the point is to have fun. And
I mean,
not have everything to be super competitive all the time. It needs to be a balance of both. And I think there are a ton of games right now that don't do skill-based matchmaking well, which is the reason why you get guys like Blitz, who is like a crazy high-level Halo player, who it takes him on his main account upwards of nearly 30 minutes to get into a match, because it's hard for him to find players of his skill level to play with, which promotes smurfing, which then completely defeats the purpose of the skill-based matchmaking. Because if like the best players are taking smurf accounts and then building them up within a few days to get at the same level that they are currently on their main accounts, but all throughout that time they was seal clubbing everybody on the way up. It's just like you're still getting those players playing against the players that you don't want them to see. So it's like you gotta kind of have to figure out a balance. And I'm not saying I know all the answers or the right algorithm or whatever the hell to figure it out, but clearly a lot of these games aren't doing it well right now. I play so many multiplayer games, it's ridiculous. Like I in Rogue Company, I'm always complaining about the matchmaking, because I'm at a certain level in Rogue Company that I'll go up against a full stack of other guys that are a comparable level, maybe a little bit less than me. But then like their way of balancing it is that giving me like three players that seem like they can't turn and shoot at the same time.
Yeah,
Like, they can't do.
They're like cardboard boxes.
Yeah, it's like I might as well play solo, because you're just feeding them. They're just feeding them kills, it's just like
real quick, Slow.
I'm carrying every match, and I hate that. That's not fun for me.
Yeah, Slow.
So
didn't COD ask us for our phone numbers in the beta too?
Yes, that's something that Blizzard, Activision Blizzard is now. Yeah, Overwatch 2 said they're doing that as well. It's a extra level of security for them, but also to try to stamp out cheating. So if you get caught cheating, I think their thought process is that if you you're gonna eventually run out of phone numbers, real phone numbers that you can actually receive
get those burners.
a text message. So yeah, these guys gonna be running 7-Eleven to get burners for their cheating. But I guess they're just trying to come up with extra layers of annoyance for cheaters, so that like it's just not creating a new account using the same cheating software and ruining everyone else's fun. You gotta come up with a different phone number, and then you gotta actually have that phone nearby to accept the code and put the code in and all that other stuff in order to verify the phone. Is it gonna work? Probably not. They're just more than likely. I know for I'm really now thinking about ways that can be spoofed and easily tricked. So.
And
it's gonna get fooled out.
That was only if you clicked yes to multi-factor authentication too. I'm pretty sure, because I did not enter my phone number.
Oh really?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it was a screen that came up that gave you an option to sign up for MFA or not, and if you clicked no, then you didn't have to enter a phone number.
Maybe they're doing it because I remember reading the blog statement from Blizzard about Overwatch 2. It almost seems like you have to with Overwatch 2.
Yeah, that may be the case.
Yeah, but it may not be the case for Call of Duty, which, I mean, if you look at the populations, they probably should force that for Call of Duty. I don't know. You know what? Maybe not. This might sound terrible, but I think they know they got kids playing their game. And it might be harder for an actual 13-year-old to get a maybe not all of them have cell phones, and so they don't want.
They require you to add your phone number to your BattleNet account. That's what it was.
I didn't. So I have multi-factor authentication already enabled on my BattleNet account, and it is entered for the purpose of attaching the authenticator to that phone. Mm-hmm. So it's just, it's a slight nuance and a semantic, and I know I'm making an overly deal about it because I work in cybersecurity, but that's asking for that to enable multi-factor authentication is different than me asking you for your phone number so that I can put you in my marketing list, right, and sell your phone number to other people, right? Yeah. So it's different purposes. I just want to kind of clarify that.
Yeah. Yeah. So my just my quick thoughts on the beta. Actually, Hamp, go to you, sir. You know, I know you play a little bit, but you know, and I know you brought up some. Go ahead.
Yeah, you know, so I was fine with the beta. That should be taken with a grain of salt in that I don't have high expectations of beta. Betas do not drive whether or not I onboard to a game. I have a probably very strict ethos about, you know, judging games based on their pre-release state. And I don't ever make a call on whether or not I'm going to onboard on a game until it's out. And I start kind of seeing some reports from people who have gone in head first. Particularly, I get concerned. My big concern is about bugs, particularly game-stopping bugs and problems with like just getting through installation and booting the game, which you know has caused me problems in the past with something like NBA 2K and other games. So, you know, from what I saw of the beta, my biggest problem was with the UI, which is, you know, maybe a good thing to say, or a thing to say in COD's favor. I don't like the UI in terms of them putting that message of the day in their advertising stuff right in your windshield. And so, you know, you get that, and then you get the modes that they're trying to drive you towards for whatever period of time. And then you have to scroll all the way down to the bottom to actually make your selection of what game mode you're going into. Now, that may have been a thing that they're going to do in the beta, you know, so maybe that won't be an issue. You know, with regards to the UI too, in terms of the gunsmith, I prefer their design approach that they took for Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, where it was more of a vertical alignment that was just kind of easier for me to kind of go through my attachments and quickly attach them and also manage them. This uses the Modern Warfare and Call of Duty Mobile approach where, you know, the gunsmith, all the attachments are kind of splayed out spatially across the screen. It's just more difficult for me to get through that quickly and make sure I don't miss an attachment. They're also kind of a subdued color palette, which I didn't like. The other thing that I noticed is I'm hoping it's just a thing that wasn't enabled for the beta. There is also not like the exclamation point inside a yellow pip that usually pops to tell you that you've got an attachment that you've just unlocked in the last match and haven't used or scrolled past yet. So each time I went into the menu to try and go through attachments for Gunsmith based on an unlock that I had done, I was kind of hunting and pecking to make sure that I was picking the thing that I'd most recently unlocked. So, you know, there were some minor quibbles with what I saw. My big thing was, you know, I played with you, BRAP, and I came into the match late and having to crawl through the visual settings. Visual settings and graphic settings, to me, I felt were fairly well refined for the beta, which gave me some confidence just in terms of launch stability. It was good to see that DLSS had already been enabled, and some other, you know, all of the kind of graphical options that you would want to have to kind of tune the game to your preference to get high frame rates were there. I'm usually accustomed to walking into a beta and seeing some of those grayed out or some of them not present. So that was good. You know, I think those are my big takeaways. You know, the modes that were there. You know, I'm a person who just plays multiplayer. I don't play, and I mean arena multiplayer, right? Like I don't play that onslaught mode, which is kind of the equivalent of like a big team battle mode with vehicles. I just don't play that in COD, and I definitely don't play Warzone. Obviously, Warzone 2.0 wasn't available at all. The new invasion mode is something that is kind of similar to Onslaught from years past to me, and in the kind of arena multiplayer modes, the only thing that was there was TDM and domination, which even once I get past kind of the basic unlocks that require you to do domination, I don't play domination anymore because it's one of those objective modes where people who are hyper focused on their KD don't play the objective and they just run around to try and get kills. So, basically I only had one mode that I normally play in COD, and what I saw was fine, right? I mean, the bones were there, all the stuff that's needed to be there in the gunsmith shop is there. I thought the changes this year were interesting in terms of, you only get 2 passive perks, I think, up front, and then you have to actually earn your way to the other 2 perks in the course of the match. And I'm fine with that approach. And I think everything else was pretty much the same. And so I don't have any reason to think that this is going to be any worse than Modern Warfare or Black Ops Cold War.
Yeah, no, and I'll give just my quick thoughts on the before we move on to E3, but I'll just give my quick thoughts on the beta. To me, it felt like, and again, I stopped playing COD multiplayer for COD probably last generation. To me, the pinnacle COD was the 360 generation, but I do play. I actually do prefer, as many of y'all know, Battle Royale and Warzone. I really did enjoy Warzone until they put out that new map, and then I stopped playing that. But I think the thing that kind of stuck out to me initially was that it wasn't as fast paced as I remember previous Call of Duty multiplayer games. I felt like there was a little more weight to the players, and I didn't necessarily think it was a bad thing. It kind of forced me to. I wasn't like, it wasn't like run and gun, which is fine. I just, like you said, Hamp. At first I was kind of turned off by it, but then as I started playing more and kind of adapting to some of the changes, the way the movement felt, then I was like, okay, this is kind of like other, it became a little more tactical to me, I guess, and I enjoyed what I played. Again, I don't think it's something I'm going to be playing a lot of, but I would certainly play with others. But it wasn't I would say it was a terrible experience for me. It wasn't vibing for me at first, and as I played more, learned it, I was like, okay, this isn't too bad. And I like Slobos, I do prefer the time to kill. I think in Halo with doing the reversals, because those are always nice to do, because you really can't do that in COD. And the camping, yeah, I can't say that the camping was worse than other previous CODs. I know, again, I haven't really played a lot of CODs prior to, like I said, I stopped playing COD multiplayer many years ago. But at least from my experience playing, I can't say at least I felt like camping was any worse. Maybe it is, but it just didn't seem like that to me. I didn't see a lot of people camping a lot. I mean, there was campers. But the one thing I noticed was that dolphin trick that you called, Hamp, the jumping and
the bunny hop to slide to prone. Yeah. And the slide to prone, like, I don't like bunny hopping. Sliding I'm okay with. Sliding to prone, that's just a I won't say what I want to say. That's just like a really cheesy hack.
Oh, I thought it was so cheesy. But those were the sweaties that were doing that.
Yeah, it was very sweaty during the beta. It was super sweaty.
There was definitely a lot of sweaties. There was a couple games, and I wouldn't say like I got destroyed. And that's the other thing too. Like, I'll say this: like, I didn't get destroyed, in many games. There was a couple games where like I ran into some sweaties, and it was like, whoa, I was getting my ass handed to me. But for the most part, like, I was pretty competitive in most of the matches that I played, which was fine. And I think that's kind of what you and Slimmo were saying. Like, it's, you want to have that because you also don't want to turn people off and have them go elsewhere. Because look, compared to the 360 generation, there's just more options out there for shooters. It's a crowded space. You can go.
Hey, real quick, did you guys try out the third person view mode
I
at all?
did.
Yeah, I did.
I didn't like it.
Did you guys you didn't like it?
No, I didn't like it.
I think the thing that I'm most curious about is it to me, it depends on how they're going to wrap that into progression. Mm-hmm. I kind of liked it. It gives you some other tactical options, kind of like you have in Fortnite, which is that you can swing the camera around and look around corners.
Right.
But the problem with that I have is, okay, when I did that, I'm like, I don't know that should just kind of natively wrap into your KD and drive SBMM. It creates a lot of questions about how SBMM is going to be implemented. Like, will it be separated for what is your SBMM in normal first-person shooter matches versus third-person shooter? Like, I don't want some Fortnite wackadoo, right? Running up their stats in third-person mode.
Hey, look, it's not just really that. Like, I follow a lot of people who are like content creators for like The Division, third person view game. They're cover shooting, supposedly cover shooting, really not really played like that, by the veteran players. But I saw them give COD a shot and was really enjoying the third person mode, but just like slaughtering people in that third person mode. People, they're enjoying it because they enjoy third person shooter games. And even though like the ADS, the switch to ADS, is first person view, and the looks a little like a kind of an awkward, clunky transition from what I saw in videos. So like I did nothing but first person view, so I don't have any experience with it. But I see a lot of people enjoy it. But the people I've seen enjoy it are people I know play a lot of third person shooters, like Rogue Company, The Division, some Fortnite, but like they primarily play third person shooters. So I think for them it's a comfort level. For them, they're used to being able to see around corners and things like that. So it's like it's interesting. That's why I asked you guys, because I kind of wanted to see another perspective, because you guys, I don't think either of you really play outside of Enrique playing Fortnite any games that are third person view. And a shooter.
Yeah, man, I do. I play The Division 2. And I love Gears.
Stop it.
Yeah.
This is
yeah.
You still playing it?
I haven't played recently.
Okay.
So I but I have it on my list of stuff to reinstall. I mean, the interesting thing about this is, unless I'm mistaken, and maybe you saw it in the videos, I didn't see, and it didn't really wasn't made prominent to me. It's not a cover shooter though.
No, not at all.
You can't pop up against a wall, and that would have been way more interesting in terms of a mode implementation. So, I mean, to me, that's where you kind of get a little bit of the jankiness and the clunkiness, because it's a third person view, but it's not the implementation that we're normally accustomed to. But it's interesting, and and I'm all for, like I was saying earlier, I'm all for forcing people to adapt and including new content, kind of in the same way that, Assassin's Creed is going the route it's going, where it's got two definitely disparate, staunch camps who like one type of Assassin's Creed or the other, and they're doing both. And so, if they're going down this road of first person and third person, and they eventually start kind of leaning more so into that third person view to kind of cultivate that audience, then, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on COD, gentlemen, before we go to E3? No? All right. All right. So E3 is back. E3 2023 is going to happen. They'll be back. It's going to be a physical event after taking, 2 years off, 3 years off now at this point. I was actually supposed to go to E3 2020, and then unfortunately COVID hit. I had my ticket. I was going to be bunking with the Iron Lords at their compound, and that just didn't happen because of COVID. So E3 is going to be back. It's going to take place from Tuesday, June 13th through Friday, June 16th at the Los Angeles Convention Center, where it always happens. This is the first event the first E3 that is going to be managed by, I think is it Red Pop? I forget the...
Reed Pop.
Reed Pop.
Yeah, it's the same guys who do Comic-Con.
Thank you. Yes. And so they said it's going to be kind of like a Comic-Con type environment where you'll have panels, but they are going to have dedicated days for media and days for hold on a sec here. Sorry, they're going to have days for media and then days for you know what, guys? Hold on. I gotta step away real quick. Someone's knocking on my door. I'll be right back.
No problem. Yeah, I have no idea what Ricky was talking about though. So I was so
So I can,
distracted.
yeah, I can,
Go-
I can run through a little bit. So, like BRAP was saying, Reed Pop has recently announced that they are going to be restarting E3 next year. Dates were laying out. As he mentioned, right, it's going to be done by Reed Pop, who are the Comic Con
yeah,
guys. As far as
not
I
ES,
kn-
not ESA, which is good.
Right.
Very
As
good.
far as I know, I don't think the ESA has any involvement at all. And so the questions this has kind of brought up is, is this overall good? Is it what fans want? I personally, and we've talked about it a lot on my main show, enough to keep going. We tend to go whole hog when E3 goes down. We have to manage our work schedules throughout the week in times before the pandemic, when working from home was kind of not like the native state of being. I would manage my schedule so that I was working from home. So and often take off so I could get home to watch a presentation, et cetera. And we would cover like the full thing, soup to nuts, right, from all the presentations, et cetera. And so we have talked about not liking the atomization of coverage across the summer. From it just seems like at some points there's an announcement like every other week, and so that mode that we would go into, which was like a very hyper-focused mode, right, starting that Sunday, where we would be doing that deep coverage all throughout the week, now has over the last 2 years it's split across the whole summer, and it's been kind of a pain. And so the question is, this is E3 launching under Reed Pop. They're not really working with Jeff Keighley's, Summer Game Fest. And now it creates this splitting of everyone's attention, and so, the corporations, the companies are going to have to make decisions. Indies are going to have to make decisions. Not everybody's going to have the ability to do both. Not everybody's going to want to do both. I don't know, Shlomo, what are your thoughts? Is this a good situation to kind of have these two, let's just call them for the sake of argument, kind of colossal main events now kind of competing across different time periods? I mean, both are happening as far as we know in the month of June.
Yeah. I'm fine with it. Like I kind of feel like more competition will kind of tighten some things up. I always kind of feel like competition brings the best out of people. And so one, it's good that the ESA is not involved in this any further, because the ESA and their a lot of their dysfunction internally that has come out and really hasn't been rectified as far as I know. It's caused a lot of the issues with E3 over the last few years, and so I think that uh, going to a company that is doing it well is one that was probably the first smart move they've done in a long time, and hopefully won't involve them doxing all of the games media on purpose, like they did a few years ago. But I think that I think gamers in general are missing the not necessarily E3, because not everyone got a chance to go to E3, right? Like what people are missing really is the conciseness of getting all the information that we now get over the course of months and months and months, and the inadequate I would say replacement of the summer game show, which just hasn't, like if you take the last one they did last June, a lot of those announcements were just a screenshot, uh concept art. Like why are you here showing us concept art of a game from a studio we don't know anything of? It's just like, just don't show up if this is all you got, right? And so I think E3 coming back next year and potentially really being good will have Jeff Keighley on a whole nother, I guess, not necessarily holding stuff all for like his later shows or for the video game awards or whatever, and actually bringing everything that he can actually bring to his show, as well as finally giving people the opportunity to kind of get back what they lost. Because if you think about like in 2020, 2 years ago, when the consoles announced, I always think about this, that it was September and we still didn't know the prices of the consoles. Even further than that, Xbox announced the Xbox Series S in September. So it's like, if there was an E3, we would have got all that information in June.
Well, right. You have. I mean, so just over the last few years, you've had. Say what you will about E3, right? But E3 historically, there was a mystique about it. There was a lot of hype around it because, as you mentioned, right, consolidated event that kind of everyone went to participate in. And during a console launch, right, it was always the strategic, kind of hand behind the back, right, that Microsoft and PlayStation and Sony always played with each other of, we're not going to announce our price first. You guys announce your price first, right? It was always this game of chicken to see who was going to go high and who was going to go low. And then, I mean, in many cases, right, we have historical records of like literally one of those companies, would walk into that weekend of E3 with two prices, right, kind of in their minds, and didn't make the final decision about which one they were going to announce until the other person went first. We kind of have the historical models of, it eventually settled down into, various companies always went on Sunday and various companies always went on Monday, right? And that type of historical structure that just kind of was like comfort food to people once they kind of settled into those modes. So it's going to be interesting. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, the on gamer Twitter, we often argue, let's be quite frank, about stupid stuff. So
right.
One of the questions I want to ask about, right, this is, what's your over-under prediction on kind of how this thing is going to unfold when there are, people in the Jeff Keighley camp versus people in the E3 con camp, and kind of the silly, foolish arguments that erupt about, which show is better. Because I'm sure things are going to get reported like, oh, well, this YouTube video has this many views and this YouTube video had this many people viewing it.
I think a lot of these camps will be determined by, is my favorite platform going to be a part of X or whatever. So I think that you'll see some camps choosing to not like the whole E3 thing simply because, oh, well, my platform's not going to be there. Which we already know a lot of people aren't going to be. Sony's not going to be there. EA's not going to be there. Potentially other publishers will choose to not be there, although since a whole different organization is involved, and they're probably going to get things get the ball rolling with preparations in a more timely fashion than the ESA has done since the pandemic started, then more than likely your Ubisofts and your Xbox, even though Xbox always plans to have an event there around that time, whether it's E3 related or not, is they're kind of exempt, but everyone else gets a opportunity to get things done in a timely manner and actually have stuff to show, instead of like some years where basically an entire conference is just showing one game and talking about that one game. I think that happened last year. It was ridiculous. So I think you're going to get like a lot of people who are not necessarily cool with the way things are, because I think universally most people just don't like the way things are right now. But you're going to get some people who are going to use it as an opportunity to take a shot at other platforms that will be present. And everyone knows exactly what I mean when I say it. Like, it's going to be people that are just going to be like, oh, who needs this? Sony doesn't do it, so I don't think anyone should do it. No one that really needs this anymore. Look, Xbox doesn't have anything to show anyway, that kind of thing. And then it's going to be the other side that you need this. Sony's afraid to come to E3. They got enough, that kind of nonsense. That's why I think the whole give it like a month before, around May, a month before E3 supposed to happen, you'll start to see those kind of arguments being thrown around all across Twitter.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's you know that's going to happen, Slow-Mo. I could see it now. So and so should have been at this event. It's a big miss. That's always a big thing that people say. Oh, it's a miss. They should have been there. But I'm interested to see how what I would imagine this thing's probably going to be attended by a lot of people. But I'm curious to see how the with Reed Pop now in charge. Because one of the complaints I think about by content creators with the way E3 was formatted when they let the fans all in, they were kind of like, oh, this sucks because now all the fans are in. It makes it hard for us to get to connect with developers, and now content creators and industry folk, journalists will have days where it's only just them and they're able to engage with the developers, and then of course you'll have like a fan day. There's actually be a day fans and media together, and then just a day for the fans, which I think is the last day. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. Also going to be interesting to see how many people come back to E3. I think it was B Money who said, I asked everyone in the BRAP chat, I said, hey, who's going to E3? I'm not going to E3. I just don't, it just doesn't appeal to me anymore, I guess. I don't know. I want to see a good show. I want to see some fun announcements because, like you said, Slobo, it's nice to have kind of a showcase or industry event where we get a lot of announcements and not necessarily drawn out through the summertime like we've been getting, kind of that drip feed of information. But I'm also curious to see who's going to be there because I think at some point, I think they were with the absence of Nintendo and PlayStation, and EA pulling out. There was pause, by the way. There was a lot of real estate space. I remember people saying that, oh wow, you walk into the convention center now, and so used to be here, and they're not here anymore. So, like B Money said, he said it depends on who's going to be there, whether or not he goes, and that's going to be curious to see who signs up. Because I think, and I don't know if you gentlemen would agree with me. I think you could have a similar impact without having to spend all that money to set up at E3 and go to the show and have a presence. I understand the importance of interacting with the fans, but I think if anything, the pandemic showing us you can still have an impact, get your messaging out. And even with events like PAX, you can still have some presence there. What I am curious to see,
we talked about that years ago.
Yeah.
We were saying that on this show years ago before the pandemic, that these companies didn't realize. Well, the first one that really kind of realized that thing probably was Nintendo.
Yeah, Nintendo.
As they started they pulled away from E3 and just started doing directs, and pre-recorded shows. They just air it when during the E3 time, but they weren't really at E3, and it's just what are you wasting all this money giving this money to the ESA, millions of dollars just to be there, and then having a presentation to show that you could hold yourself. You could do this entire thing yourself. You're actually paying for it all yourself anyway. They're not helping you get the show done. So it's just why even force all your developers to give you vertical slices and put trailers together and wasting their time instead of actually developing their game just to have it all ready by June, when you can actually just go let them take their time, get their games ready, get their games prepared, get the marketing stuff all down pat, and then do it when you want to. And now we're seeing the fruit of that. We're seeing these shows happen when the publishers and platforms want to do it, when their stuff is available, which is beneficial to them, and it works for them. But for us, it's just we've been spoiled by the E3 experience, where it was Nintendo, then Microsoft, then PlayStation, day after day after day. And you saw everything that they really were going to provide for you within the next, throughout the rest of the year, and maybe up until a couple of years from now, as far as far off stuff that they hit you with, big surprises and things like that. You saw all that all happening within a week. And it's just there's no way they put that genie back in a bottle, so to speak. People who have annually enjoyed looking forward to that experience. Can't go back to. All right, well, I guess. I mean, PlayStation's going to have a showcase someday. I mean, that's it, right? You think about it. PlayStation still hasn't had their official showcase for this year yet, and it's almost October.
Yeah, and to your point, Slomo. I mean, with that being said, they do the little drip feeds of the PlayStation, showcases, the little state of
the
play.
state of plays,
and look what's happening. I mean, I went online. I mean, Wario put out, okay, PlayStation's available at Walmart. I clicked on the link, sold out immediately. I mean, look at how their software sales. I mean, they're I mean, and this is without, an E3. This is without, like you said, like a big showcase. They have a big release coming up November. They didn't do a showcase. We haven't had a showcase this year like they had last year.
Right.
I mean, the writing's on the wall, right? I mean, Sony is not going to be at E3. Nintendo is not going to be at E3. Microsoft seems to be the one company, granted, and it's probably because of the $3 trillion backing, right? Who is relatively flexible about doing things to kind of support these types of events as the large manufacturer, because it as everybody else has moved out of the way, it gives them a sound stage, right, to kind of capture the spotlight, and you can argue about whether or not they have anything worthwhile to put in that spotlight, right? But it's room and it's space. I mean, I suspect that they will probably do both E3 and Summer Game Fest next year, right, with content in and around those events, whether or not they're directly a part of it or not, or they bracket the two or kind of drop something in between. But Sony has been kind of building towards establishing a regular drumbeat and cadence of state of plays. They are becoming a lot more, I would argue, cookie cutter. And I think, I argue that they are moving in a direction that requires less of Jim Ryan's personal oversight. And so I think that's going to continue, and this isn't going to cause them, right, to blink or swerve at all. They're going to continue on that regular pace, driven by their production pipeline. Would be the only reason that they juke left or right, from their targets. I guarantee you their calendar of states of plays for 2023 are already at least laid out in pencil for when they're targeted, and I don't think this is going to cause them to shift. So, right, going back to Slow-Mo's hypothesis about, kind of what is going to be the foolishness around this. I mean, so this probably leaves a space where only Xbox is going to show up, right? And you can kind of predict the narratives that are going to go around based on that.
Yeah. Oh, we already know. Especially if Xbox has a great showing. Unfortunately, people won't just celebrate that great showing and say, hey, this is a great showing. They showed us, great first party content. It's gonna go into, Sony's scared. That's why they didn't show up because of blah blah blah. I mean, like it's just and it's unfortunate. That's the other thing too. People should celebrate these events as opposed to tearing down one other company because I think it's fair to offer criticism, but I think unfortunately it gets taken to another level, and people just want to tear what one company's doing or what one company didn't do for the sake of console wars. And these should be look. I think E3 coming back is a great thing. We should celebrate that instead of just poo-pooing on either people didn't show up or tearing down companies or what companies or developers showed at the event. I think criticism is fair as long as it's constructive, but the other stuff's just ridiculous. So, let's see here. So like I said, I don't think I'm gonna. I know a lot of people are talking about attending this event. I don't think I'm going to. I've heard people actually tell me that if you're going to go to an event, that PAX is probably the better one to go to. It's more gamer centric.
Heard that a lot too.
Have you heard that too?
Also, this is the experience of like getting to see a lot of games that are unique and different in indie games, up close and personal, being able to test some of them out, a vertical slice of the game right there, and be able to speak to the developer, like the kind of questions you may have could get answered immediately. That kind of stuff happens at the PAX events. I haven't been to one, but I've talked to a lot of the people that we talk to in the same circles that we run, have seemed to go to them annually. I want to go to the one. The one PAX East happens in Boston every year. I want to check that one out eventually. But I would love to just go and just really get to see the industry at work. It'd be good to do at one point.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, that would be cool. Yeah, so that's just my quick, commentary on E3. Any other comments, gentlemen, before we wrap
I
up
do
the
have
show?
to run. I gotta. Oh yeah, you about to wrap it up? Okay.
Yeah,
good.
I'm about to wrap up the show.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
11 o'clock. I gotta get going too. So, all right. Well, look. First of all, I want to thank everyone in the live chat for coming by, hanging out with us. Really appreciate it all the time. Again, if you're in Florida, for anyone in Florida, please be safe. Hurricane. I forget the name of the hurricane now. But yeah, I mean, it's. I'm seeing some pictures from people that I know down there, and it looks pretty dicey right now. Hurricane Ian, by the way, is the name of the hurricane that looks like it is now a Category 2 storm. I think it was a Category 4 when it made landfall. So it's decreased, but it's still a dangerous situation. But yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out with us this evening. Please hit that like button. If you're new to the show, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you are alerted when we go live. And also, please check out DPS tomorrow night. Slow-mo, whose channel is it on tomorrow night? Yours, I think.
It will be on Gaming Forte's channel.
Forte's.
So that's Gaming Forte on YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're gonna have a great show. Forte is going to explain himself for his shenanigans. I don't know what shenanigans he has to explain. I'm just
making
messing
stuff
around.
up now, man.
No, yeah, I know. I'm just trying to get him riled up again. No, we're gonna have a great time. That's the homie, of course, and just come through. We'll see you there.
Absolutely, yeah. Please check out those gentlemen tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and then Hamp. Thank you again, sir. Let everyone know where they can find you if you want to be found.
Yeah, if you do want to swing by the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast that goes down Sunday nights at 8:45. It is different from some of the other podcasts that you might watch. Again, fair warning, it's kind of like if NPR had a video games podcast. So that's just to give you a heads up, so you can't accuse me of false advertising. Just one real quick thing about the storm, just because I have some tangential direct involvement in watching it. Just a Category 4 storm can re-strengthen, so don't take that it's dropped to a Category 2 as an indication of the full devastation that this thing is going to wreak, or keeping track of loved ones who may be in its path. So just watch it until it's all over and goes back out to sea or completely dissipates. So everybody should be kind of on high alert and concerned about people, not only in Florida, but in neighboring states as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great point.
Real quick, I don't want to extend this too long, but we didn't talk about real quick the Intel A77 770 gaming GPU coming in at $330. Just real quick, I hope it's good, because if it's really good, it's really going to help reset the market as far as pricing goes, especially for the mid performance GPU market. All right, I'm good. That's it.
No, thank you. No, we didn't get a chance to talk about that. Maybe we can talk about that a little more in depth next week for our PC segment of BRAP, which everyone loves, by the way. So, yep. So look, everyone, have a great weekend. May do a BRAP rant. And this may be a good rant. So just keep an eye out for that. Give me a follow on BRAP on Twitter at BRAP_podcast. So on that note, we're out. Everyone, again, enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy your time playing video games. Have fun, because ultimately that's what it's all about. And we'll catch you next time.